Hey everyone, Theo here. Today I'm reviewing the XPPen Artist Pro 22 Gen 2 pen display. First of all, disclaimer, this is a review unit provided by the company, and in this video I'll just present to you my findings so that you can decide whether this is worth the money. And the price of this pen display at the time of review is US $600, which includes free shipping. This pen display also comes with 18-month warranty. Let me give you a quick introduction. So the most recent pen displays from XPPen are the XPPen Artist Pro Gen 2 series of pen displays. And right now the company has 14-inch, 16-inch, 19-inch, 22-inch, and for the 24-inch they have two models. One comes with 4K resolution, the other comes with 1440p resolution but has 165Hz refresh rate. So I have reviewed almost all the pen displays except for the 24-inch with 165Hz refresh rate. So if you want to check out my other reviews, the links are in the video description below. Even though all the Gen 2 pen displays use the X3 Pro pen, the pen performance actually varies slightly on the different pen displays. As usual, let me give you the bottom line up front. This pen has excellent support for pressure sensitivity. So this pen is very sensitive and there are no issues with diagonal line wobble. Tilt works fine. There are no issues with cursor misalignment. So the cursor is always directly beneath the pen tip regardless of the angle of the pen. This pen display is using a 22-inch LCD, so it's really spacious to work with. There is plenty of space left over even with palettes on the left and right side. The resolution is 1440p, and on a 22-inch pen display, all the visuals, they still look pretty sharp to me with minimal pixelation. Color support from what I have measured is 100% sRGB and 95% AdobeRGB, so color accuracy is pretty good. The display is laminated and comes with a matte glass surface which provides this subtle tactile drawing experience, but it's quite smooth but not slippery, so I can still control my pen quite easily. Viewing angle is terrific with minimal to no color shift, and also the display is bright enough to go through the diffuse reflection. I measured a maximum brightness of 280 nits, which is more than sufficient for use in a bright room environment. Downsides: the matte glass surface has minimal color noise or anti-glare sparkle, which is a good thing, but it does affect sharpness slightly. However, the overall visuals still look pretty sharp to me, limited only by the 1440p resolution. There is no button for the OSD to adjust color settings, so you need to use the XPPen driver to adjust color settings. And speaking of color settings, this display has been color calibrated at the factory, so even if you do not have a hardware color calibrator, it's not an issue because this has been color calibrated. There are no hotkeys by the side of the display, so if you need hotkeys, you can use the included ACK05 shortcut remote. For Mac OS users, the 1440p resolution on a 22-inch display is actually not a good combo. If you use the native resolution without scaling, the UI such as text, icons, they may look too small. But if you use UI scaling, the visuals may look fuzzy. But don't worry, you can install this helper app called Better Display. And this will give you the high DPI, high resolution option to make everything look sharp. Windows users do not have to worry about UI scaling because everything will look sharp. So the bottom line is, the pen performance is excellent. And I did not have any issues with the hardware or with the driver, so my overall drawing experience is very positive. So if you happen to be in the market for a big pen display that has good color accuracy and fantastic pen performance, this is one that you can consider, together with the XPPen Artist Pro 19 Gen 2 and the Pro 24 Gen 2. Oh, I have a favorite ask from you. If you happen to have the intention to buy any pen display, consider using the affiliate links that I have in the video description below to support my YouTube channel and the work that I do here. I do get to earn some commissions through the affiliate links for each sale, but at no extra cost to you. Alright, on to the full review. Let's take a look at the items included in the box for the purchase. As you can see, there are many items in the box. That's the power cable, the power adapter. This is AC adapter, 36 watt, 12 volt, 3 amp, a 1.5 meter long USB-C to USB-C video cable, a 1.5 meter long USB-C to USB-A data cable, microfiber cleaning cloth, one artist glove, warranty card, user guide, color report, pen replacement pen tips, a pen holder that attaches to the side of the pen display, the back cover for the pen display for covering the cables, a 1.5 meter long full-size HDMI to full-size HDMI cable, and this is the XPPen ACK05 shortcut remote, some stickers for pasting onto the buttons, and we have a matte textured metal pen case that is really well made. Inside this pen case we have the XPPen X3 Pro Smart Chip Stylus. These are the items on the removable tray. That's the pen tip remover, 4 replacement felt pen tips, and you can buy extras if you want to, and they are quite inexpensive. The price is around US $15 for 20 pieces, and the model number for the felt pen tips is PD21. 4 more replacement plastic pen tips, and the model number for this is also PD21. And we have a USB-A receiver. This is a Bluetooth wireless receiver for the ACK05 shortcut remote. I actually have a video review just for this shortcut remote alone. So in this review for the pen display, I won't be talking too much about this, except to tell you that there are 10 buttons here, a wheel, another button in the middle that you can use to switch between functions for the wheel. There is one USB-C port here for charging the internal battery. Let's take a closer look at the design of the pen, which looks quite good. The build quality is solid. There is a big silicone grip here, which is quite comfortable to hold. There are 2 side buttons which are customizable and one eraser at the back. The pen supports palm rejection, tilt sensitivity, and 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. Pen tip has slight movement when in contact with the display surface, and this pen design allows the pen to tilt quite low. This pen is not powered by battery, so no charging is required. This pen display has been color calibrated at the factory, and this is the color report. AdobeRGB average delta E is 0.84, so anything less than 2 is good, less than 1 is fantastic. And average delta E is the color variance between the digital color input and the recorded color output. And now let's take a look at the design of the XPPen Artist Pro 22 Gen 2 2.5K. So I have my keyboard, mouse, and pen in front just for size comparison. And this is a huge pen display. This is obviously bigger compared to the Artist Pro 19 Gen 2 and smaller compared to the Artist Pro 24 Gen 2. I will make a separate video just to compare the 19, 22, and 24 in terms of size. So in this video review, we'll focus on the 22. Build quality for this pen display is excellent. The back is made with plastic, but feels really solid. This is matte textured. All the edges are beveled, so the finishing is really nice. The stand is already attached to the back, and if you want to mount the display on a monitor arm, the VESA dimensions are 10 by 10 centimeters. So this is actually removable, and this is made with metal, so it's really solid. There are 2 rubber feet, one here and one there beneath the pen display, and here underneath the stand there are 2 more rubber feet. And these are rollers. Having the rollers is an improvement over the older design because now you can pull the latch towards you and let the roller move the stand backwards or forward and lock the pen display into whichever angle you prefer. Weight of this pen display together with the stand is 5.55 kg, so that's quite heavy. So the ports are located here. That's the barrel port for the power, USB-C, video port, full-size HDMI, and a 3.5mm audio jack. All these are for cable management. So once you have the cables connected, you can put this back plate here, push it in to cover the cables. On the top right side of the pen display, you will find the power light indicator, power button, brightness control, and there is this slot here for the pen holder. To install the pen holder, you just push it in and it should click in place. This is how the pen display looks when it's powered on. The bezels are quite thick, but not excessively thick for a pen display. The bezels are actually slightly thicker at the top compared to the side. That's the XPPen logo. Size of this LCD is 22-inch and the resolution is 2560 by 1440. Not having 4K resolution is definitely not a downside here because the visuals still look really sharp. If I look really close, I can see slight pixelation, but if I'm working from one arm's distance away, I don't really notice the pixelation. Overall design is clean and simple, and this is matte textured glass. This is not a matte textured screen protector. And this is how the anti-glare looks versus a glossy display. The anti-glare is actually not that aggressive, as in it will diffuse the reflection, but you can still see the content on the screen. You will get the best visual quality when you view the display straight on. And even if there are lights behind you or from the ceiling, the diffuse reflection is not going to be that obvious. If I have the light source very near the display, yes, this is obvious. But when this is far away or on top, I barely notice the diffuse reflection. And right now I have a huge window on the left, and I would say the brightness is high enough to go through the diffuse reflection. I measured a maximum brightness of 279 nits, so that is more than sufficient for use indoors. And the viewing angles are pretty good. There is minimal color shift and minimal drop in brightness when viewing the display from extreme angles. So the quality of this display is pretty good. Let's take a look at the color support. With a Spider X2 color calibrator, I measured color support for 100% sRGB, 90% NTSC, 95% AdobeRGB, and 92% P3. Before color calibration, make sure you set the color space to user, which will give you 95% AdobeRGB. If you set it to AdobeRGB and calibrate, the AdobeRGB reading is actually lower. Color quality of this IPS LCD looks really good. And since the display is color calibrated at the factory, you don't have to worry about color calibration, especially if you do not have a color calibrator. So the colors look vibrant to me. The contrast looks good, and the display is bright. Now 90% AdobeRGB coverage is actually really good. The XPPen Artist Pro 19 has 91% AdobeRGB, but if you need even higher AdobeRGB coverage, then you will have to get the XPPen Artist Pro 24 4K Gen 2 that I have reviewed recently. That has 97% AdobeRGB, but 90% is definitely good enough for graphic design and photo editing. This display is laminated, so there is almost no gap between the line and the pen tip when you are drawing or writing. And if you see a gap here, that's actually due to the camera angle. Now notice there is some softness here. You can see the text is also a bit soft because this app has not been updated to take advantage of high resolution displays. When I switch over to this app Affinity Photo, you can see the text is actually sharper. But with XPPen Paint, you can see the text is softer. So this is actually a software issue. And this is the sharpness with Windows OS, and this looks pretty sharp to me. So this issue with the visuals looking softer than expected can actually be fixed with software, and this applies to apps running on Windows OS. So to fix the softness, you can try to find out where the app is, right click, open the properties, and under compatibility, look for this. Change high DPI settings, and this is where you can do some trial and error to see whether it can fix the softness. Even with 4K displays, sometimes the visuals may look soft and sometimes the UI may look too tiny, so this is where you can sort of tweak those settings. The settings that I use here is high DPI scaling override. Check this and set it to application, click OK. Click apply. So I have just tweaked the settings for XPPen, and now the UI, the text looks sharper. If you want to use this 22-inch display at its native resolution, which is 1440p, the user interface elements such as text, the menu bars, the icons, or even the palettes, the control bar, toolbar, they may look small, and some of the small text can be quite difficult to read. So if you're using Windows, you can actually increase the UI scaling to increase the size of the icons, the text, and this will apply to Mac OS as well. But for certain versions of Mac OS, UI scaling doesn't work that well. So when you try to scale the user interface using the Mac OS system settings, under displays, make sure to show all resolution. Now if I choose 2048 by 1152, let me select that. You can see the UI, the text is now noticeably bigger. The icons bigger, the palettes are also bigger. I can see the visuals are softer. So if the macOS visuals look soft to you, choose the resolution options with high DPI. And if you cannot find any option that you like with the proper UI size, for example here, the icons, the text, they are just way too big, then you will have to install this app called Better Display. This app will give you the high DPI setting for all the resolution options. So if I enable this right now, you will see the text become sharper instantly. So let me click this. Notice the text is now sharper. And if I disable this, the text is softer. So if you're using Mac OS and the visuals look soft for whatever reason, just go into Mac OS system settings and play around with the resolution options here. And if this does not solve your problem, go install this app called Better Display. Let's talk about connection. Regardless of how you connect the pen display to your computer, the pen display has to be connected to a power source. Now for video connection, there are two options. You can use either USB-C or HDMI. If you use HDMI, you will need the HDMI cable and you will need another USB cable. So the HDMI will transmit video and the USB will transmit data so that the pen can work. If you want to use USB-C connection, make sure your computer can output video from the USB-C port, in which case you can just use a single USB-C to USB-C video cable for this connection. Now, this pen display does not support power pass-through, so you will not be able to charge your laptop through the pen display. Let me also tell you how to connect the wireless shortcut remote. So this uses Bluetooth. All you have to do is power this on and you should see a blue light. Yep. And for pairing, just press and hold this button for 6 seconds and the blue light should flash and you just connect it to your computer and the blue light should remain solid. And that's it. And now let's see what you can do with the driver. So this is the Windows driver version 4.0.8. The macOS driver should have similar functionality. Installing the macOS driver requires enabling several permissions, so I highly recommend you check out the instructional manual to see which permissions you have to install. Another thing with the macOS driver is if the driver does not start up together with your Mac, just look for the driver, put it in the dock here, right click like this, go to options and have the driver open at login. Once your pen display is connected, it should show up here and the name of the pen display should show up here. And this is the same driver that you can use to customize the shortcut remote, which is located here in the drop manual. So on this first page, this is where you can calibrate the pen. So if you tap here, it will calibrate the pen tip with the cursor so that there is no misalignment. And for this pen display, I did not have to calibrate it because the cursor is directly beneath the pen tip. Now under work area is where you can customize the working area of the display, which is currently mapped to the whole desktop, so I don't have to do anything here. If you're using a dual display setup, you can also set up the mapping. So right now I'm actually using a single display setup, and under display settings is where you can customize the brightness, the contrast, the color space, sRGB, AdobeRGB, P3, user, and you can customize the color temperature, the RGB individually depending on which setting you use here. So if you use user, you can customize all this, but here I'm locked. I've selected AdobeRGB. Next, this is where you can customize the pen. So you can tweak the pressure curve by moving the 3 control points around. Or you can choose from the different preset pressure curve, and I shall choose this. You can test the pressure here. And this is the pen, the X3 Pro. There are actually other pens that are compatible with this pen display, so if you want other designs, you can look for other pens from XPPen's online store. So pressure and tilt are enabled. This is the Windows Ink feature, which you may have to toggle on or off for troubleshooting if pressure sensitivity is not working properly. And this is the mouse mode where you can push the cursor around instead of having the cursor track the pen tip. You can roll over the buttons here. Just click on the button and you can customize the 2 side buttons on the pen. So I have this button here set to switch display. So if I'm using a dual display setup, I can just press this button and have this cursor move to the other display. And click it again and have the cursor move back to this display. Let's have a look at the eraser, which is also customizable. And here under the setting wheel, this is where you can save your shortcut settings for the driver. This pen display does not have any hotkeys or shortcut buttons by the side, so you don't have to customize those. But there is the shortcut remote, so let's also customize that. Just select the shortcut remote and you will be brought to this page where you can customize the individual hotkeys, which I have already done so. Okay, so for the customization, you can set a keyboard shortcut, you can set mouse control, and for others, we have the show driver panel, switch monitor, precision mode, brush eraser toggle, pen eraser toggle, switch roller function, key group switching, set preview or disable. And you can also set one of the hotkeys here to run an application. This shortcut remote allows you to customize up to 4 groups of shortcuts. So I have one group enabled. So let's say you want to customize another group of shortcuts for another app. You can just enable here and go customize the other group, the second group. Or if you want to customize another group for a third drawing app that you use, you can just enable this. And for this review, I'm just going to enable this group. And you can set one of the buttons here to switch between the 4 groups of shortcuts. This pen display does not have a physical button shortcut for the OSD menu. So if you want to adjust the colors, the brightness, contrast, you have to do it through the driver. And it's time for the line test. And the app that I'm using is XPPen. And as you can see, the handwriting and note-taking performance is actually quite decent. However, latency will affect the handwriting and note-taking performance. So as I draw this long sweeping line, you can see the line trying to catch up with the pen tip. And this is not really an issue when drawing, but when you're writing fast, you definitely can see the latency. Let's test the initial activation force and look for diagonal line wobble. So this is a 70 pixel brush. And I'm going to draw with minimal pressure. Let's zoom in. So the line is actually quite straight. Let me draw by glancing the pen on the surface of the glass. So this is actually pretty straight, and also the pressure consistency is good, as in I don't see the line width vary, so this is actually pretty good. Any wobble that you see here is actually due to my hand shaking. Let's have a straight edge here to help me draw a straight line. So this is very straight. Next, let's see how the lines taper. We can see the lines taper smoothly and sharply, and at the start of the line you can see it's thinner, becomes thicker and tapers. So this taper actually looks very natural. Line transition from thin to thick. And this is the true pressure test, because some pens actually cannot draw thin lines after drawing thick lines. And here we can see thin lines after thick lines, and this is also a diagonal line, and I do not see any diagonal line wobble. Let's see if we can maintain consistent line width by maintaining consistent pressure. And we can do so very easily. Let's draw some dots. No problem. The next test is for cursor misalignment, where I will draw separate lines and join the lines together by looking at where the pen tip is, not where the cursor is, and see if there will be any gaps between the lines or if the lines will overshoot. So I am able to join the lines without the lines overshooting and without gaps. There is some overshooting line here, probably due to human error. For the first box here, it looks fine. I can join the lines without overshooting and gaps. For the next test, I'm going to hold the pen vertically and at 45 degrees to see whether the cursor will move as I change the angle of the pen. So right now I'm holding the pen vertically, and now I'm going to tilt the pen very slowly to 45 degrees and move back to vertical. I do not see the pen cursor straying away from the pen tip, Any movement with the cursor right now is actually due to my hand moving. So this is good. And lastly, we have cursor tracking at the extreme edge. So you can see the cursor tracks very accurately, even up to the extreme edge. Let's look at tilt sensitivity. So this app is Sketchbook, and this is without tilt with minimal pressure. And this is with heavy pressure. And now I'm going to tilt the pen to get the broad strokes. Tilt the pen even lower to get the broader stroke. Press down hard so we can have tilt and pressure working together. And I'm going to just have a slightly broad stroke, heavy, thicker broad stroke. So tilt works fine and works quite consistently. There is some tilt variance here, but that's due to human error. The main takeaway here is the tilt transition from thin to very broad is smooth. And this app is Krita. So here you can see the cursor following the direction of the pen, as long as the pen tip is close enough or near enough the display. So let's have thin, thin, broad, and let's have this circle. And this is very smooth, as in there are no gaps between the stroke. So from what we can see, the pen has fantastic performance. The pen performance is predictable and consistent, so that is great. Next, let's talk about drawing experience. So this 22-inch display is big, and this is how big the display is compared to A4 size paper. You can fit two A4 size papers side by side like this, but the paper will be noticeably taller. Now, if you are thinking of buying the 24-inch display, well, the 24-inch display is still slightly shorter than A4 size paper. So if you really want to look at your A3 paper at 100%, ideally you should get a 27-inch pen display. So this size is about 9 by 12 inches. Now, personally for me, since I have very small tables, I would actually prefer to have a 19-inch pen display rather than a 22-inch. And a 24-inch pen display to me is humongous, so this is somewhere in the middle. This matte glass surface is wonderful to work on. It's considered quite smooth compared to those screenless pen displays, but I can still get a good amount of control over the pen. It's not slippery, so I can still get the lines to appear, to start and stop where the line should stop or start. This is not a touch screen, and not having a touch screen, in my opinion, is not a downside, but having a touch screen certainly is a bonus. And I actually draw on my tablets, those portable tablets, quite often, so I find myself using finger gestures on this pen display quite often. And of course, finger gestures cannot be used on this display. Alright, let's draw something very quickly. I'm going to reimagine my room, this room that I'm in right now, as an art studio with lots of painting, canvases, paper lying around, and brushes and paint buckets. So this would be the huge window here on the left side. Maybe we can have some shelves or table here, another layer of shelves here with lots of art supplies. Let's maybe have some paintings here. This would be the huge window. We can have a table here behind. Maybe this is my work table. Now this surface is really nice to work with. It's very enjoyable to work with. Yeah, so maybe we can have a cupboard here. No, let's extend the wall here. Now this pen is really sensitive. As I draw this line just to create a quick sketch, I can see this very fine line. This is very sensitive. This is how thick the brush really is. Yeah, you can just glance very lightly with minimal pressure on the display, and you can get very thin lines. So this is great for sketching, and the accuracy is so good that obviously this pen is going to be suitable for creating professional art. Okay, so let's start. I'm using a 55 pixel Sumi brush, and this app that I'm using is actually MIDI Paint. So let's just draw some diagonal lines. So there are certainly no issues with diagonal lines. Yeah, the line is very smooth. No issues with cursor misalignment. Yeah, let me just reduce the opacity for the background. So you can see this diagonal line, it's really smooth. Let's draw another diagonal line. Oops. Yeah, so let's just draw over there. Oops, it's not that straight because my technique is not that great. So let's draw this a bit faster. Yeah, so this is very smooth, very straight. Another reason why I prefer a smaller pen display is I don't have to move my arm like that much when it comes to drawing. So if your display is too big and you have to move your arm that much when it comes to drawing, then it can get tiring pretty quickly. But of course, you can always like zoom down and draw so that you don't have to have big arm movements. But I guess you're buying a big display for some reason. Okay, so let's erase. I do not use the eraser at the back. I mean, I can. Yeah, I can, but I would prefer to use my keyboard shortcut, my keyboard. Oops. Because I don't have to do this flipping action. Using the keyboard is just easier. I can erase. I can switch back to brush easily without having to turn the pen. Okay, and not having hotkeys with this pen display is definitely not an issue. Oh, I'm not actually using the shortcut remote. The shortcut remote, by the way, works fine. So I have set the shortcuts to all these tools. So as I press the buttons, you can see the tools will switch. So this is actually quite convenient. Let me switch to a, you know what, I can use this combination. Yeah, so this is the layers. I'm pressing these two buttons for the layers because pressing this button will go to tool number 7. And this is tool number 6, but if I press these two, I can get the color wheel. So you can use combination keys. Okay, so what do I want to do? Select this, press the combination key, get the white, and just tell you that this app that I'm using is actually Concepts. Let's have a canvas on the floor. So this is a diagonal line. It's straight. So this canvas is resting against the wall. Palm rejection obviously is perfect since this pen display is not a touch screen. So far, I've been using the 55 pixel brush. Maybe let's have another canvas here. Yeah, so I can glance with minimal pressure to get the thin lines very easily. Let's have some plants outside. So this is how thick the brush is. The drawing workflow is very smooth. I did not encounter any issues at all. Oh yeah, since the pen pressure is so sensitive, you can actually press down hard to get the broad strokes, which can be useful for coloring big areas. That's my mic on the pen display. And this is how the pen sounds. I was using the plastic tip earlier, and this is the felt tip. So the texture is not like paper, but it still feels nice. Let's erase this. Let me just make the brush smaller. Let me just switch over to the eraser button at the back of the pen, and it works fine. So the drawing experience is actually really good thanks to the pen performance, which is very predictable, very consistent. So this is a really good pen. It's very accurate, very sensitive. And now I'm going to color this really quickly and show you guys the end result. And since there are no issues with line art, there won't be any issues with coloring or digital painting. So this is what I have so far. I did not experience any issues while drawing. The workflow is very smooth. The drawing experience is very positive. There are no surprises. The only issue with pen performance that I discovered is with this app concepts. So pressure sensitivity actually works fine with this app, but for this particular brush called the pen, when I draw with it or write with it, this will happen, even though this pen actually does not use pressure sensitivity. So there is this weird effect that goes on that only happens to this specific brush. Another issue with this app is tilt either does not work or it does not work consistently with this app. So I tried to tilt the brush, and you can see tilt only worked in these two small areas. So if you're looking for a big pen display from XPPen, the ones that you can consider are the XPPen Artist Pro 19 Gen 2 with 4K resolution, the Artist Pro 22 with 2.5K resolution, or the Artist Pro 24 Gen 2, and there are two models for that. One has 2.5K resolution with 165 Hz refresh rate, and the other has 4K resolution with 60 Hz refresh rate. By the way, the refresh rate doesn't affect the latency, which is to say that even if you have 165 Hz refresh rate, the latency isn't improved. The latency is still the same. And speaking of latency, I certainly do not have any issues with the latency for this pen display. There is latency, but it's not something that I would notice unless I'm specifically looking out for it. So that's my review, and this is my review of the XPPen Artist Pro 22 Gen 2.